everybody, happy Friday and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips with me, your host, Anne, and Disembodied Hands, Quindy, and Justin, and John. Thanks for the patience today. I'm sorry, I was just running a little late this morning. So here we are, and without further ado, yes, we are here on Darius the Blue, and today I have decided to try something, which is it's both hard and easy to do at 28 millimeter. You can't really go into as much detail as you could on a bust, but we're going to do a salt and pepper beard on him. Which is usually just like a white and black streaked or dark and light streaked beard. It can be a brunette, it can be brown with white. And of course you can also see it in redheads, although it's less salt and pepper there. It's more like copper and silver. But yeah, so I decided I kind of wanted to do that. I didn't want to go really warm with his beard because his skin is so washed out. And I knew that if I went with a very warm color for his beard, his skin would just look even more gray. So I decided to go salt and pepper with it. Also, I get a lot of requests for that. Like, it goes back and forth as far as, like, what people ask for. But I do get a lot of, like, how do you do a salt and pepper beard? He has a good one for this because, and again, you should always look up photo references for this stuff. Yeah, there you go. Shadow Raven. Well, it's not salt and pepper, right? It's the wrong color. Unless you were, like, red peppercorns. But if you look up long salt and pepper beard, you see you've got two predominant color patterns. And most often what you see is the beard streaking out more toward the ends. And you often see where the mustache, the darkness of the mustache continues in streaks like that. So that's something you definitely can do on a 28 millimeter model. There is another way the pattern happens where it definitely starts in the middle and you get the white around the mouth. But that, from what I've been seeing on these photos, is a lot less common. So even there, you can see, even though everything is graying out, he still has the dark streaks there. So that's what we're going to do today. So I'm going to start out, I'm going to pick a good gray. You usually want to go, because the salt and pepper look isn't actually gray per se. I mean, the hairs are going whitish, but they're, they're more white or pale gray or lacking pigmentation. And less actually gray. The gray appearance is made by the overlay of the light hairs over the dark hairs. So you want to kind of pick an organic color. I'm going to start with walnut because it's such a good, like a dark beard color like that guy has. But I want to use something that's a little bit more... I'm thinking about going and mixing in an off-white actually. Thinking about maybe cairnstone, except I think I dragged that over to the other room. So we'll look over here. Wolf gray is a good one for this, or a bone color. So maybe I'll mix skeleton bone into walnut brown, or maybe let me look around a bit. Wolf gray would be a very good choice for this, as it is a brownish gray. Stone gray, if you want to bring it up that way, I guess we could do stone gray, walnut brown. I won't be using much of the stone gray, though, because like I said, the gray pattern is made because of the overlaying colors. And maybe we could use bleached linen. Thinking about bleached linen. Those are colors everybody's got, so... Oh, yeah, gunmetal blue armor with the crimson, yeah. I used to do that all the time when I was painting for eBay. There were a lot of... Vampires were very popular then. Alrighty. So let's use these guys. And if I do use the stone gray to start with, which I probably will, I'm going to end up covering it almost entirely over. Its purpose is to serve just as a base coat to cool everything down. Hello, Robin. Yeah. Yeah, the scarring. Like, scarring of the skin can cause the hair color. Right, you see that. You see that when somebody gets a head wound and they have silver hair in place of what they used to have, right? That's funny. So... At least he had a cool pattern. Alrighty. So I'm going to start with that stone gray. We're just going to do it straight up. We're going to put it on him. And then we're going to almost completely block it out. It's just going to be our ground color. Stone gray has pretty good coverage. It's 9086. It's a little bit darker than I would normally have chosen to go with, but that does give us a lot of room to bring it up with the white streaking. So, or in this case, the off-white streaking. And when you've got, when you're doing braid hair, it can help to choose a color to highlight with that's slightly yellow. A lot of people, like the lucky people, get pure silver or that appearance, but a lot of people go a little bit yellowish, like polar bears, right? They're a little bit more, it's more like a lack of pigment. And so it's not a pure white. And some people, like I said, they're lucky and they get that, but most of us are not that lucky. All right. And I don't think I want to go with brown liner. I think I do want walnut. I want a warm black kind of color, a dark color. I don't want to bring any like big warm color up near his face because it's going to wash out his skin majorly because we went so very elderly and kind of colorless with the skin. So, and don't worry, I'm going to fix my focus in just a second. Let's do that. Focus fixed. I'm very happy with the front of this. I'm actually happy with the color composition so far entirely. I need to get some the dark color up here on the hat so that it can be around his face. And I think we need to go dark blue, like Nightmare Black with the back. That's my thought. Otherwise, I'm pretty happy with the color comp here. All right, so the bones material is almost this color anyway, which is the great irony, right? Let me get my glasses. Man, my guts are really upset at me today, Carly. I cannot handle the coffee. You can sing the coffee anthem for us, though. Alrighty, let's get this down. Yeah, it is almost exactly the same color. That's funny. It's a little browner. So my underpainting I'm pretty much going to wipe out because that was done when I was like still debating what I wanted to do. And now we're going to just kind of go against that. I'll probably leave a little bit of shadow still. Although maybe not, because this is where we need to bring our beard up lighter. And his mustaches are going to end up being darker, so we actually need to bring light up into that. I can leave a little bit of that dark streaking coming down from the mustache, though. And this is also a good choice because, like I said, I wanted to make the band of the hat here I'm going to go to a much smaller brush for these eyebrows. The band of the hat a dark blue, so the white eyebrows will stand out very well. So what kind of spell do you think this guy's casting for his familiar to look so disapproving? There we go. Like I said, it's kind of the same color as the bones underlying, but this will give us a substrate of actual paint to work with. It's not very often I use a tiny brush for base coating, but sometimes when you've got little fiddly bits that you have to get to, it is the answer. Then once I've gotten those little fiddly bits filled in. Oh, there's a strand of hair right there too. I think I want a little bit more on this. There. Okay, now we can switch back to our bigger brush. Fantasia, huh? Find familiar. Oh my. Oh, the wizard is trolling his familiar. Oh, that's awesome. Great one, dude, Clairman. Great one. Great one for the story. And maybe it's a super awesome familiar, you know, like a wolf or a tiger. It's a tiger. It's got to be a cat. It's got to be a cat. He's summoning a cat. It's like animals, monster summoning 2, and he's summoning a cat. Or he is trying to replace his familiar. Yes, I like this idea. This is great. Find better familiar. Hello, Bob and Julie. So we'll just get this base coat down, and then we can start layering in colors for this salt and pepper beard. And probably this won't take up the entire stream, so we'll have time to work on the dark blue on the hat and on the cloak to get those colors figured in. That's my goal anyway. Helps to have a goal for when you sit down to paint, otherwise you're liable to just fiddle around, which is, you know, fun and all. Except when you're trying to get something done, like for a gift for somebody for Christmas. Then you might need to, like, focus a little. Is anybody doing that? Painting something for someone for Christmas? All right, let's mix up some walnut now so that we can start working on this. We'll do our darks first, and then we'll bring up our whites. Since we want to streak the white over the top of the dark, that's why we're doing it this way. I'm going to mix up my white as well, which is off-white. We're going to use bleached linen. Few art swaps, yeah. Not for Christmas, for tomorrow. Is it a Secret Santa or something? I always hated Secret Santas. Like, I'm always hard up enough for ideas to get for people for Christmas. And Secret Santas just take it to a new level of difficulty. Yeah, I'm going to thin these even more. I'm going to thin them about 2 to 1. Because I want to be able to do nice thin strands. The beard is pretty clunky as far as like big, thick strands. Because it tends to go that way in a 3D sculpt. But if we can get our paint thin enough, we can suggest individual strands a little bit on some of these surfaces. And that will help. Yeah, I've run into the IOU, the dreaded IOU present, Quindy. Yeah. All right, so at 2 to 1, this is going to be more... It's going to be more watery paint, but both of these colors have excellent coverage, so they're going to still work fine. You wouldn't want to thin this much on a paint that did not have good coverage out the gate, because then it's just going to go very transparent right away. Something like Nightmare Black is going to go to really actually quite see-through because of the heavy blue pigmentation. Hello, Lord Gusumba. We are doing okay. We are going to attempt a salt and pepper beard on this guy, and we are pretty much ready to go. I want to make sure I'm in focus again, just because for some reason there we go. Oh yeah, the brush holder would work for a fountain pen. That's absolutely, I have a fountain pen too, so I love fountain pens. It's my favorite journaling and to-do list making writing tool. I used to write longhand a lot for my actual writing, but I can move a lot faster with the word processor, so I am going to base coat this with the gray. So again, this is Stone Gray 9086. We're going to leave those dark tips on his mustache though, because we're going to work on those. Work from those. But yeah, now I want a rocky brush holder, so I can do that for my fountain pen. My most frivolous thing I ever bought for myself is what my fountain pen is. Okay, so I'm going to take this dark and I'm going to actually go from the beard there and take it down into this crevice here. So that I suggest the streaks we're going to put in the mustache here are going to go right down into here. Now there is kind of a clump of beard right here, and I'm going to kind of try to work around that by painting over the top part of it and then narrowing this into a more narrow stripe so that I can still utilize this area over here for gray beard streaks. So we're going to take that color down, and now we're going to bring it up into the mustache. The disapproving hand as a gift, quote unquote. Oh dear. Hopefully coworkers and not people in your everyday life. If you must have people like that in your life, Quindy. All right, so I'm going to use this to bring the dark up into the mustache. And I'm going to keep my brush moving in the direction that the strands of hair would grow here. I'm going to darken it down right around his nose. Just leave a little bit. I'm going to put some streaks in there. And then I want to get a bit dark right up here next to his cheekbones as well. For the same reason, we're going to be putting some streaking up there and over here. Remember again, always move your model around. Don't move your brush hand around and try to get it in an uncomfortable position to paint. You will not build brush control very quickly if you do that. It's much better for your brush control to change to an angle that your brush hand is very relaxed and that you can use your usual or very close to your usual angle for doing these fine details. For my own brush angle, I tend to go like this, and sometimes I will go like this. That is my 90-degree arc of functionality. Anything outside of that arc, like even this, feels uncomfortable to me, and I won't use it. I'll move the model around. They are a little heavier, so yeah, you're gonna have to add some weight to the bottom or a very wide base to hold them up, but it's going to feel nicer if you add some weight to it. Just like a metal model in your hand feels a little nicer than a very lightweight plastic one. But you could also like kind of landscape or not landscape the base. You could put Rocky on there and then put fountain pens only or something around it. You know, this is the Reaper 74031. I'm 50 millimeter round, I think. It's a very nice little base, and it has a lot of room on the underside for you to put like 4 washers on it to give it weight. So I might do that. Most nice fountain pens are going to be heavier weight. I have a very nice fountain pen indeed. It is a little bit heavy. I have one of the Pilot Umber 823. They're nice. But also, if you think maybe he'll open it and go, what's this? You know, putting it on a base like that with a little, like, you know, fountain pens only around the outside could, you know, be enough of a visual cue. They'll get it right away. I'm just going to shade around the eyes again. The bottom of these brows is going to be quite dark around the eye, just to make the eye stand out. Let's get a little closer. I'll try to stay in frame. But yeah, putting that dark shadow there, you can see it very much makes the eye stand out where we've just painted the white in. And I'm going to bring in some stone gray and kind of blend that a little. So we'll keep the brows dark around the eyes, and then we'll bring them out to white at the edges, which will work because we're making the brim of the hat a darker color. Yeah, I love my fountain pens. I always loved using them. I used to have cheap ones back in college, and I got frustrated with them because they would clog all the time or not write smoothly. So I eventually got myself a copy of the fountain pen Neil Gaiman uses, which I adore, and which has never clogged on me. I have actually worn one out. I had to. I had originally ordered one with the wrong size nib, so I had two, and I had to switch to my backup because the other one died. So they do wear out eventually. Let's see here. I think I want to thin this walnut even more so it's a little less harsh. I'm going to throw another drop of water in. It's going to be closer to 4 to 3, 4 drops of paint, 3 drops of water. That's going to make it quite thin and watery, but it's going to make it a little easier to do finer strands with it. Yeah, I love being able to use all different colors of ink in my fountain pen. It's fun. All right, so let's do with the mustache on this side what we did over here, which is to darken it down and make it kind of blend into the beard. And again, use your brush stroke should be going in the same direction as the hair is growing, which should be very easy to figure out on a mustache. Once again, taking it a little darker at the root means that his nose and his features of his skin are going to be more easy to spot. When he has such a small amount of skin, anything you can do to kind of like make his features stand out is a good option. So I'm just trying to get that kind of, using this almost as lining. And since the hair is real roughly sculpted here, like don't like beat yourself up if it, you're not getting as fine detail. What the object is just to get the general effect. So we're going to go there with that. Going to go pretty pale with his hair in general, but I am going to line a little bit. And I think I'm going to bring up the dark more in the strands in between on his hair. Salt and pepper hair does tend to be a little bit darker at the roots and paler at the outside, per the pictures I was looking at. So I'm going to bring up a little bit of shadow in this area. A little darker than, quite a bit darker than our starting little stone gray base coat. And again, always be moving your brush in the direction the hair is growing. Whenever you're painting humans or animals or anything with fur, it's just a good general tip to always use your brush stroke in the direction the hair is growing, because then if you do leave, even if you leave brush strokes when you didn't really mean to, they're just going to make the fur effect look better. Like they're going to make the fur be more realistic, or the hair look more realistic. So just a good general rule of thumb. And most of the time, the sculpt is going to tell you what direction that hair is growing really, really clearly. Sometimes fur is so short that it's not even sculpted on things like werewolves on their arms and stuff. So in that case, you can look at your dog, or, pictures of animals in general. And what you'll generally see is the hair growing like toward the center or down, like so. On the arms, you can just look at your own hair. Most of us have a few hairs on our arms, and usually it's growing toward the outside. And so that's the brush stroke you would use on, say, a werewolf that you were painting that way. You can totally use yourself as a guinea pig to figure this stuff out. Artists throughout the ages have done this. Hello, Roger. So yeah, just introducing some, I'm doing a little bit of a mix of my walnut and my stone gray just to bring in some darker tones here toward the roots and down in the shadows. Then we're going to bring this way up, but I like to block my darks in first because, as we explained earlier, when you're doing salt and pepper, you're going to be putting your white directly over your dark to kind of create the appearance you're looking for. So we want our darks well blocked in before we start messing with our lights. Wherever you think you might. I mean, keep in mind that white covers really well. So even using bleached linen, it also has really good coverage. So if you put a little bit too much dark in, it's not like you can't take it out again by just brushing some white over the top. All right, so this little strand is difficult place. So again, turn the model, not your brush hand. Just try to get at a comfortable place. The other reason to use, like, reposition the model instead of your brush hand so that you can comfortably attack the angle of the thing is that you're going to have a lot more control if your hand is not trying to contort itself. So not only will you build brush control faster, but you will also just have an easier time of painting whatever it is you're trying to paint. And easier equals less frustrating and more fun. All right. It's a good start. I'm going to start layering in this white and see if this gray is going to be enough, or if I'm going to want to darken it even more to get the effect that I want. Once again, this bleached linen is thinned 2:1, paint to water. Just going to start kind of bringing it in. Once again, always using a brush stroke that is in line with the way the hair would grow. You can see I have very little paint on my brush, and that the tip of it is very needle fine. I am using my Da Vinci Maestro Series 10, size 1. And using the thin paint and a very, very fine tipped brush allows me to do tiny little brush strokes like you see there and make this very clumpily sculpted, 3D sculpted hair a lot more natural. And the thinned paint and the largeness of the relative largeness of the brush also lets me paint for longer, because I've got enough fluid in my brush to keep going for a while without it drying or getting tacky. So we're getting some variance now. I want to keep some of this texture, so I won't get too thick with my paint on this. I may end up layering up a bit of pure white later, depending on how it comes together. I'm totally going to make this guy summoning a cat. The reason I asked is that I was kind of trying to figure out what to paint in the book. So we're totally going to paint a kitty cat. Maybe we'll paint a Hello Kitty on the book. Then the mouse being disapproving totally makes sense, which I like. You want to, when you're telling a story with a model, I always say this, but I mean it, you really want it to be something where if you look at the details, you totally get it right away without a lot of explanation. Anything that you have to stop and tell a story for is going to be a lot harder to convey to the person who just walks up to your model and just looks at it when you're not there to explain it, right? So try when you do a story, especially if it's a simple little story on a 28mm, try to make sure you convey all the information so that it's very evident just to the casual onlooker. Even in a big diorama, like, the story should be evident enough that you can get the general gist of it. Even if you don't get like the finer points and the details, at least you understand roughly what's happening. And the other tip for story in general and diorama in particular is to make your diorama as small as you possibly can. Tell the story in as little space as you possibly can. I think Hello Kitty is more instantly iconic, so I don't know. Or I'll just paint a tiger, a cartoon tiger. We'll see. We'll see how much I can reasonably. This is a big book, so you could fit a bit into it, but it's still tiny, you know, relatively speaking. Oh, I have my little millimeter ruler in the other room, but you know, maybe this is a centimeter. So anything we do, we probably need to map out beforehand a little bit. And the simpler the design, the generally more effective it's going to be in miniature. And often, if you try to do a more complicated design, you will find that you must simplify it in the end in order to make it work. Now, if you have a big book, like Christine Van Patten's, her little Luna, her moth mascot, moth lady, the one where she's got her with the book. The book is very large. It's a bust. And that you could do some serious freehand work on. But little guys like this, not so much. You have to figure out how to convey the information very, very quickly and in very little space. So this is working really well, actually, guys, if you look at it. So I'm highlighting the beard and the mustache here with a little bit of the gray. And I've got this going on. The stone gray is working very good as an undertone. We're going to keep working around the side here, but I'm quite happy. This definitely looks salt and pepper so far, so I'm quite happy with it. I am going to lighten up the very bottom of the beard a bit. Yeah, Lucky Cat would be funny, but then the mouse might not be so disapproving. Facebook wants to know which Reaper paint is closest to raw umber. Hold on. Do I have a raw umber? Sadly, raw umber is so transparent that we do not have any pure forms of it because even though Reaper doesn't go for coverage as much as other paint companies, it nonetheless wants some coverage. I tried to do a clear of raw umber because it is a pigment that I had access to back in the day. And it was just a failure because it was absolutely had no coverage. No coverage whatsoever. Tell her if she still, hey, Maharoon, thanks for the raid. Tell her if she still has if she has old HD colors, if she can find, I think it was Umber Brown actually. That is very close. But it is really, really transparent. Which is why part of the reason it was canceled. It didn't sell as well as it needed to. And it wasn't, I put it in HD because I had nowhere else to put it, but it wasn't a very good HD color because HD was supposed to be higher coverage. Also, raw umber varies a lot from manufacturer to manufacturer, I find. I don't know if I even have it in tube. Maybe I do. Hold on. Let me see. Here, let's hit pause on our salt and pepper beard for a second. It is coming along. No, you wouldn't want to use anything with a lot of oxides. Raw umber is such a weird color. Do I have it? If I have it, it'll be in this box. Oh, it's right on top. What do you know? Obviously, it was meant to be. This is gouache. It looks a lot like burnt umber in this particular variant. Let's see here. Yeah, this raw umber feels more like a burnt umber if you see it. In which case the equivalent of umbers in general is our russet brown, 91.99. But I mean, if raw umber gouache looks like, it really does look like a burnt umber. Let me get a little bit in my palette. Usually it's a little yellower. Come on, paint, come out. Hold on. My gouache is stubborn. I'm going to use a pokey tool to get a little bit of it, so I can thin it down. Because just like with anything else, thinning it down and mixing it with something else, well, yeah, it is more yellow. Okay. A lot of the umbers are really, really transparent. Really, really transparent. And you need to thin them down to get a real feel for what they are. I'll show you guys in just a second. Gouache is the closest thing to miniature paint, by the way, in the traditional art world. It's not a very popular, because it's opaque watercolor, and it's not a very popular medium. A lot of art stores won't even carry it. They'll carry just watercolor and acrylic. But gouache is kind of like that crossover point between the two. And working with gouache is a lot like working with MSP or other tube paint, or other, hobby paint. So the color of raw umber is this. And here, let me get my black base or you won't be able to see it. So that's it. Let's pull it real thin. So I would say to her, if she wants to get close to the precise color, got this, Pendrake? Probably a mixture of rich leather and russet brown, and I'll even try that. Hold on, let me do 2 drops of rich leather. I needed to do this anyway for my handout on how to equate, how to hit artist tube paint. It could be that I want blackened brown instead of russet brown. This is why I'm testing this real quick. Because russet does have some reddish tones to it, and blackened may be closer. This is a little bit too warm. That's what I thought. All right, so let's try blackened brown. That's going to be closer, I bet. Do I have it around? Yeah, I do. So essentially, because this went too red, see how it's too red? That's a clue that you need something that's a little more green. And this is green, but this is very black and brown. Black and yellow make green. So that's how we're going to get to this greenish brown. We're going to put 1 drop. So we're getting a little bit of paint mixing lesson here. So you seldom, when you want that slight touch of green and a brown, you are almost never adding actual green. You are adding black and yellow. Because you don't want an overwhelming green shift. You want just that hint of cold brown. So let's try this. It might even be better with polished. Oh, that's close. That's really close. And it's going to cover better because of the black and brown. So let me just thin this down, bring it over, and see. She might want to go... I almost think I would go 3 and 1. Hold on. So I want to take the richness of the black and brown down and get it a little more yellow. Still not quite perfect, but it's getting close. Might even be better with, and the problem is that black and brown is made with brown oxide or red oxides. It's just got more black in it. Close, not quite precise. Might have to use polished leather instead. Advise her to just mix. Mix with some rich leather, polished leather, black and brown, walnut. Tell her there is no exact equivalent. And even if she gets an equivalent color, it won't be an equivalent consistency. Like, it won't have the transparency of umber. But I don't want to sit and take up more time on the stream. But yeah, the thing about raw umber is it is very... I don't consider it a very useful color, and some people really like it. Everybody's got the colors that they really like, right? And the colors that they think are just kind of meh. I think I need to add a little water to this tube paint, though, because it's definitely getting a bit globby. Boop. There. Yeah, if I could have done it fast for her, I would have done it, but chances are it's going to be having to go with a slightly different yellow thing. And even this might not be green enough. Maybe this plus walnut. And But yeah, it wasn't going to be instant. And so once I knew it wasn't going to be instant, I was like, nope, we are not going to take up a lot of time. If she wants to come on here, like if she was on the stream, then maybe, but it's not the stream's job to answer questions from Facebook. Or was it Facebook? But yeah, I don't want to take too much time away from painting. So, but if she messes around with various yellows and browns, she'll hit it eventually. But there is no, I guess the useful answer is there is no equivalent. You have to mix. That is the most useful answer. There. Yeah, Facebook. Yeah, I don't have a lot of time. Oh, I have almost no time for Facebook, sadly. So I can't go over there and answer questions like that. But yeah, just if you want to tell her Pendrake that she just has to mix. All right, let's get this all back together here. I think maybe the closest might be, the more I think about it, is like probably a mix of polished leather and walnut with just a touch of umber, with meaning russet brown. I don't know. It's going to be persnickety, because raw umber is a persnickety color. Very, very persnickety. Oh no, wrong brush. But yeah, her other option is, as I said, to find somebody with a bottle of the old umber brown, which is almost entirely raw umber pigment. Which is why it was called umber brown. But again, it has no coverage. Zero zilch. Makes a great transparent wash or glaze. Just going to darken down the hair here a little bit since it's in shadow under the arm here. And then we'll bring it back up with the white. But yeah, part of the reason I guess I don't use raw umber is just that it is such a persnickety color. It's just a little bit, it's like yellowish, greenish, blackish. It's weird. Yellowish, greenish, blackish, brown. I like burnt umber so much more for its warmth. And I feel like it's, maybe it's just because I like warm color schemes. So like raw umber is great for cold browns. But I find myself so seldom going in that direction. That's probably why I don't use it a lot. So we are bringing in that the white on the other side. Yeah, I will be doing that whole artist's equivalencies thing, so I'll have to figure out if there is something, if there's an easy mix for raw umber at that point. But it's definitely going to be a mix. But yeah, usually the answer is a lot easier than that one. That's one of the more complicated pigments to try to match, as you can see. But if they, I mean, you can always tell, if you see that on Facebook, you can always tell them, hey, Anne's on Twitch, you know, streaming for Reaper every morning. You could just come over here and ask. And if it's a hard question, I still might not be able to give the exact answer like today, but I can take a minute or two to do a quick mix and at least get somebody on the right track. After that, the work is on them. All right, so now we're getting up here, and I have to ask myself if I'm going to be bringing any white into this dark, and if it is, I'm going to be bringing it in very slightly, just to kind of suggest a little graying of one into the other. And the more little streaks that you put into your darks, the more the older the person will appear, as far as like, you know, not a lot of their old hair color left. Yeah, she'll have to be in charge of that research, exactly. At least until I do the tube paint handout that I have in mind, But like Rhonda, I mean, I agree with Rhonda that a lot of people overthink colors. Like, you don't really need the exact color. What you should be asking yourself is, what sort of color do I need to get this effect? Like, what sort of color is raw umber? And it's actually probably very close to, I mean, it's pretty close to rich leather. It's just a blacker version of rich leather, really. So you got to ask yourself, like, what am I going to use it for? If you're using it with skin tones, then maybe you don't want all that black and you could just use rich leather. Whereas if you're looking for a very cold greenish brown, then it would make sense to add some black to rich leather and see what you could get. But it's almost never important to get the exact color. Just get close. Ask yourself what you need, what qualities of the color you really are looking for and why. And that's a much more useful question. Oh, yep. Yeah, I don't know what shape it's in after all these years. That's a problem. That's a problem with stuff being on for sale online, is, you know, it's been sitting in that game store or warehouse forever. On a shelf, getting dusty and like settling. But yeah, in the future, I think I'll just ask people to come to the stream for those sort of questions, because it's not that much work to like come over to Twitch and ask in chat. And I kind of feel like they're looking for the easy, quick answer. And it's like, well, if you just come over here, you can get that easy, quick answer. But you have to come over here. You have to do that much. You have to meet me halfway. I feel like that. Twitch is not that scary. We don't bite. We don't bite, and we answer all sorts of questions. What more could you ask for? But yeah, hopefully that'll at least get her on the right the right track. Did you guys tell her that burnt umber, or did she only post about raw umber? Did she ask about burnt as well? And I hope you told her russet brown. I think I was looking at my tube of, may have been this gouache, the M. Graham burnt umber gouache, or it was the artisan oils from Winsor & Newton, and the color of the burnt umber was exactly the same color as our russet brown. So again, I'm going to go back here and I'm going to use my brush and very little paint on it to try to get some nice streaks in the hair here to get this pattern. Oh, I see. Oh yeah, no buy-seller trade, right? And I do want to kind of also keep in mind that I need to put highlights on this. Like right now we're painting purely for color and not for highlights. So I am going to look at where my highlights should be and lighten those areas, which here would be where the hair curves out. And if you totally lose all your strands, then you can just, take a little bit of your gray mixed with walnut and kind of reintroduce them. Well, then, that is true. That is true. Perhaps she just can't come over here. She can always ask on my Saturday stream, too, which is a little more friendly to people who have to work 9 to 5s. There. So now that I've got a little bit more of a highlight there, a little bit harder, I'm going to start bringing that in here. There would also be a highlight in here because this is the beard almost always poofs out where it hits the chin. And so you almost always have a highlight right here. So we're going to still use those thin lines, but we're going to bring it in heavier right between those mustaches. Although if she's sitting at Facebook sitting on Facebook at work, then I guess Twitch can still be outlawed where Facebook is not. The Book of Faces. So we're making that a little heavier right there. I'm going to try to preserve a little bit of my strands, but I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to minimize my gray and bring in more of this bleached linen. There we go. I have a bunch of time at the end of this month where I have to be sociable with David's parents, and I figure I can put some time in while they're here into figuring out tube paint equivalents, because I can do that and still be social. So again, using brush strokes. I've got a couple little paint grits or plastic grits down there that I need to slice off, though. I'm going to do that. They don't want people watching streaming video games while they're at work. I can't imagine why. But how are you supposed to stream Bob Ross's channel eternally at work to stay tranquil? Like, there's definitely a plus to that. I'm going to take this kind of clump off the end because I'm not a fan since I'm knifing. There. There's a little clump there where I'm not sure if it was sculpted or just a byproduct of the molding process. So I'm going to paint that over with stone gray, and then I'm going to redo my little white down here just to make things look a little nicer. Hey, everybody's got an opportunity cost, right, Namazik? It's like, if I'm doing X, then I'm missing out on Y. So I'm going to not do X so I can do Y. There we go. Let's do these eyebrows, actually, while I wait for that to dry so that I can hit it again. It's, again, really thin paint on this bleached linen. It has really good coverage. So you can thin it quite a lot when still get good strands, painted strands and details out of it. There we go. Again, turning the model so that I can get a much more comfortable angle to paint from, which helps me keep better control when I'm doing these little fine details. Now those eyebrows really stand out. Yeah, I like the salt and pepper. It's turning out, this is a good model for this. I'm glad I decided to try this. Some models, I think with shorter hair, it's very hard to carry off. But when you've got a lot of room, I think it's a little easier. There. All right, let's get a little bit more of this here. Now that this is dry, I can bring it down to the bottom of the beard again. I do appreciate all you guys tuning in and giving us the views, even if you can't actively watch because you're working. Remember, I do my stream on Saturdays now on my own channel, twitch.tv/paintingbig. We do paint club. It's always a lot more chat, which is nice. A lot more chatting questions, which I really like. Because I know people are busy during the stream a lot, so. And I will be streaming tomorrow on the channel at 3:30 p.m. USA Central Time. Thank you for the shout out, Quindy. Actually, I've been getting a fair number of people on that stream. I'm really grateful. Very thankful to all of you who show up. And since I found my gigantic brush, we're going to continue blocking in Forest Demon Girl on that stream. I'm going to need to make some decisions about her skin tone. It's nice to be blocking in Grisaille, but then I need to actually make some decisions. I especially need to make some decisions because I think I want to give it to David. And when he walked in on the stream last Saturday, he's like, oh, I really like the skin tone. And I'm like, but it's just Grisaille. And he's like, oh, well, you can make it a real skin tone just by adding some reddish tones. And I'm like, facepalm. So much for my other ideas. Oh, thanks, Quantum. Oh, yeah. Awesome, Lord Nobody. Yeah, you guys, thanks for the follows. I can't tell you that, like, I'm not streaming, so, you know, I can't tell you that on my channel, but I'm going to tell you that on this channel, and you can apply it to the other channel. Thank you very much. Yeah, I just do once a week, because obviously I stream on here every day, so. But it lets me, my white's getting a little thick. Let's add some water. I'm going to add a couple drops of water to this bleached linen. Got a little bit of evaporation going on. But yeah, I tend to do, work on stuff that I really like. We did some, we almost completely finished Werewolf Chibi over the holidays on the other channel. So normally over there, I'm going to be working on just special stuff that I feel like working on, or I'm going to be working on models that I will later put up for sale on my Patreon. And yes, I have a Patreon, and it is awesome, and it has a lot of content up and on it at this point. I am finishing up filming on one of my new videos today, which is for the $2 level, we've been doing a series on how much texture you can really do at 28 millimeter. So the first one was about dings and dents and abrasions on metal and like scratches and stuff. And this one today is going to be, we're going to do a little bit of cloth texture like on a denim. Actually, we're going to use Mr. Werewolf for that because I wanted his jeans to have a denim, or his pants to have a denim texture. So we'll do that. It's a horizontal texture instead of a vertical, or sorry, vertical instead of a horizontal. So it's a little bit different. But yeah, so my Patreon is patreon.com/paintingbig. We have a lot of different levels, and yeah, go check it out. I've got some free stuff up there too. It is my love. It's what keeps me going, literally. Without it, I would not be able to do all these other cool things that I get to do, like being on this show every day. So I appreciate all of you who are my patrons. Never, ever doubt it. Like every day. You keep my creative lights on. So let's get and just, first we're going to just do little streaks here to bring in the salt and pepper look. Then we're going to concentrate more on where the highlights would be going. Thanks for the link, Quindy. I have a little bit of blue bleeding into hair over here. Or aqua, I should say. Let's just use our handy walnut to address that. This hair is having boundary issues. Always set good boundaries. This is what your lining is for. There we go. And since I noticed that I don't really have lining or shadows or any demarcation here between the cape and the hair, I'm going to bring that in as well. Like I said, I've got my walnut mixed up, so I may as well do it. Got the color all handy and stuff. There we go. Now we got a nice, you can see the nice shadow now under that hair. There. Okay, so now that we've got that nicely defined, it's much more fun to paint. And I did notice that I lost my lining up here between the sleeve and the hand. So while I have my walnut, I am going to bring that line back in. There. Excellent. Yeah. I am so not up on the new memes. This comes of me not spending a lot of time on social media because I want to get other things done. David's more up on the new memes than me. Still a cloudy day out today. I was kind of hoping for more rain. We had just a little bit last night. Yeah, the memes do move very quickly. So very, very thin strokes again. And again, I'm not paying attention to highlighting here because this is a complex color pattern. I want the pattern to be there first. And then I'll bring my highlights in more to get the light, just like we did on the front. You know, instead of Nightmare, I think I'm going to do Blue Liner on the back because I want it to be more muted. Nightmare is very vibrant, so on a muted color scheme, it can sometimes give you some challenges. Just those little tiny, those are actually sculpted, those little tiny strands there. A lot of these we've had to suggest with brush strokes, but here and there they are sculpted. Yeah, I hear you, Quantum. Like, especially if you're a creator of any type yourself, it's always this delicate balance, like, because you do spend time consuming, but then you also want to spend time creating and on your other stuff. And social media can be addictive, so ideally, I think you use it for the value that it offers, but you don't let yourself, like, get totally wrapped up in it. I try to only go to YouTube when there's a specific thing that I need to know. And then YouTube is excellent at teaching me that thing. Like, I need to learn about mailing lists today, so I'm going to go over to YouTube and I'm going to watch some stuff. But while I'm there, I'm going to try not to get sucked in to the awesome, literary agent channel I follow and my Overwatch channel that I follow and, all those other things. If I want to do those, it's more like I try to listen to them on my walks. Since most of the time you don't need to like actually see the talking heads to absorb the information. I'm going to bring in that line just a little sharper. It might be a little bit too sharp, but I'm going to try to bring it up here. And I feel like there would be some more highlighting here, so I'm going to block that in a bit there. So I'm brushing this thin bleached linen where I want the highlights to be. I'm brushing it over my darker parts, but because it is so thin, it's still leaving a slightly darker line, even when I cover it with one brush stroke or two. Right. Yeah, I mean, using social media is important, but even then, it's a fine line. I'm listening to a lot of audiobooks on these days because I'm trying to become better at marketing my Patreon and other stuff, right? And it really is a delicate dance because you still, when it comes down to it, your main focus should still always be creating your quality content. And social media can really take up a lot of time. I mean, I spent hours yesterday working on my Painting Big website, and I have very little to show for it. Like, I did a lot, and I worked on a lot, but I didn't get anything new uploaded to the gallery because I wanted to work on my landing page and some other stuff and, kill off some pages to roll the info into others. And that's just like the website. That's, I also did put up an Instagram photo, which takes longer than you think when you're really thinking about the tags and the information that you want to give people. So yeah, it's everywhere. Like I'm in a Patreon ambassador now, and that gives you some, tools to talk to other experienced creators and probably the biggest thing that people are like really like despair about is the quandary that you're in, because you have to spend time on social media marketing, but you also must find time to create. So it's a very difficult balance. That's good to know, Shadow Raven. All right, so I think this beard has actually turned out really well, guys. I'm going to streak a little bit more up here, more white streaks in the mustache, just a little bit here. But I think it's actually turned out quite well. I'm pretty happy with it. So the reason I say that I said at the start of this stream that it's both more difficult and easier to do in 28 millimeter is that if you've got the right sculpt, it can be quite simple because you don't need a lot of complexity to carry the effect. Whereas when you have a big sculpt like a bust, you have the room to do all those little speckles and complex stuff that you see going on in a salt and pepper beard. But because you have that room, you have to be so much better at it. You have to really nail it for it to look right. So it's kind of back and forth. It's like, I really feel like at 28, you need the right miniature for it. And I think this is an awesome miniature to try it on. All right, time to move the model again because I wasn't getting a good angle. To get those strands in. Yeah, good. All right, now let's hit the back here because I need to worry about highlighting. Now, where to highlight the hair as it comes down the back is here, where it goes out over the shoulders. Usually you can see that it kind of comes out a little bit from the model there, and that's where your highlight should go. So let's get some of our bleached linen and put that in. There we go. So mostly concentrating on that section of hair. And I want to block out a little bit of the darker strands here. So I'm going to like paint like just one layer, one stroke over the top of those with my white to bring up the whole thing. Because there are highlights and you want the shadows to be in your highlight areas, your shadows should be lighter. Think of it that way. See? Alrighty. Again, just bringing this a little bit more solid here. These strands are definitely sticking out, so I'm going to carry a lot more light over here, a little more white. Block out my shadows a little bit more here so that those strands really stick out. There we go. So just bringing in some of these stronger strands with a little bit more white, bringing it all up. Remember that toward the ends of the strands, that's where you tend to get a lot lighter on a salt and pepper. I feel like I need to tackle this part that comes out over his shoulders. You can see how it's all still kind of the same at this point. So we're gonna bring in a little bit more light and take down our shadows a little bit. There we go. I feel like I got a little globby there, so I'm going to grab some of my walnut mixed with this and break up these strands here. Yeah, there's a lot of really great YouTube content out there. Like, that's the great thing about YouTube. I mean, there's a lot of kind of lackluster content too, but there's a lot of stuff. But some of that stuff is really cool. And it gives people the forum to create, right? Where before we had YouTube, it was just whatever was on TV, whatever TV studios chose to put out, right? Was all that we had, or you know, movies. But now anybody can create the show that they dream of if they have the resources and the time, and build an audience, which is just awesome. It is a pretty cool time to be a creative. It definitely takes work, but there we go. I just wanted to bring those strands a little bit separated there on his shoulder. I do feel like I want to bring in a little more white there. There we go. Yeah, I think that's pretty good, guys. Does he look like salt and pepper to you guys? Like, I feel like leaving enough like darker grays is been quite successful. I maybe could darken that down a little bit, and I feel like the back of the hair also carries it because we've kept a lot of our darks up at the top. So I feel like this is pretty successful. Again, if you want to try this technique, this is a really good model for it. And to repeat who he is Darius the Blue. He's one of the first Bones USA models. He's 30,002. Gives you a lot of room to work with the color streaks that you need to depict this kind of hair pattern. I think this is probably my most successful try at it. Yeah, he's a good practice figure for a lot of different stuff. I'm just going to bring a little bit more dark here. And a little bit more on this side as well. Lost a little bit of my darks on this particular side, and I can totally bring in that dark here. There. To make the streaks more evident on both sides. Yeah, that works. Yeah, lots of cloth practice on this one for sure. Just going to bring in a little bit more up here. Just fine tuning at this point, looking for places that I've missed, that I could bring out just a little bit more detail on. Double checking stuff from all different angles. I started a little bit late, so I'm going a little bit late. Pendrake, thanks for the chime check though. Yeah, I love that we can all get out there and share our passion. You know, these days people can reach out across these platforms and find people who are really interested in what they have to say. It's just awesome. I'm gonna grab some blue liner and block in the back of this cape and the top of the hat, since we have just enough time to do it. Yeah, right. It is overwhelming, Quandom. It is. That's why I try to just do targeted stuff. Like if I'm looking for specific information. And then while I'm there are channels I subscribe to. So if anything cool pops up on those, I may spend, 10 minutes watching a video just on one of my guilty pleasure channels, like my Overwatch channel, or my there's a literary agency I follow that does really good videos on just generally on writers and agents and how to be a good client and what agents are looking for and tips on how to, prepare your manuscript and stuff. I like that. They seem like cool people, so I enjoy listening to their stuff. Yeah, I try not to get too distracted because I have enough to do. Look how dark that blue liner is. Like it's not the top, the brim here. I want a really dark rim above the eyes to make the eyebrows stand out. Pulling attention up with contrast instead of a lighter color, because I already have a lighter color on the skin and the eyebrows. So I'm going to try blue liner and see if I like it. And I can always highlight it with like my Templar blue if I decide it's a little too dark. Your base coat is never the end of the story. You can always modify it. You can take it down with washes or glazes. You can bring it up with highlights and change the color just with the addition of a little bit of that. But I think I want a very dark cape on the outside. Yeah, no, I want the blue up there because the Templar blue is kind of our pulled together color. So but I'm going to switch to a better brush to do it up here. More precision. And I know that the blue liner, when I add white to it, will highlight up to a blue-gray that'll be slightly muted and should work, even though I'm going to have to be careful with how much I highlight or it will clash. Just because the colors are so close, but they're not precisely the same. Gotta say, I was just on my Patreon Discord yesterday, and a lot of you are really improving. Like, it's so cool to see. There's some really nice things that people are working on. Everybody's getting so good. So now we'll have kind of this repeated dark up there and down there. Quantum, it shouldn't. Sometimes the base is a little bit, when we get the base from the company, it's a little bit smelly. It's that liner base for some reason. So your paint should still be okay. I think it's one of the components just has an odor, and when the maybe when they get a slightly different ratio or something, it just gets stinky. I only got a base like that like once in my entire time with Reapers, so yeah, I am a liner whiff. Yeah, that's what I said. It's like it's definitely a different odor, because like I tell you guys a lot. That's why these work so well as like washes onto bones material, is that they are very chemically different from other stuff we use. They have a certain odor. The smell is part of that to tell you that it is a different thing. It's why the first thing I do when I pick up a new paint line to kind of like just keep up with the industry is I actually smell it. It gives me information on what they're using. I smell it, and then I usually put it on the palette and thin it way down to see what level it breaks at, because that also will tell me all about its chemistry. Apply it to stuff both straight and thinned, and what happens then gives me more information about the chemistry, and also about what it's good for, what the company is going for as far as what they're trying to do with their paint line, or if they just aren't trying to do anything in particular. Sometimes it feels like that. Once you have designed paint lines, you if you learn a little paint chemistry, you can deconstruct other people's stuff pretty easily. Or at least you'll get in the right ballpark. Just blocking in the back of this book. Since it's all in shadow, making it a brighter color doesn't really make sense. So I'm going to go with a blue-black for the cover. There we are. Got that all blocked in. We can maybe work on the book next time. We'll see what I feel like doing, but might need to trim that up a bit. We're making progress on him though. I like his hair. All right, I think we're at the end of the stream. Thanks everybody for sticking with us. We did a salt and pepper beard on our lovely Darius the Blue today, which I'm very pleased with. I think it turned out very well. We blocked in some other colors because we hadn't really put a very dark color on him yet. So I decided to do that on the cape and the rim of the hat and the book to kind of balance stuff out. You always want to use a mixture of lights and darks on your figure. So since we added a light, I decided to add a dark as well. They are not an ink at all. They are a more fluid-bodied paint, Turgeon. So they are better. They're made so that if you thin them, you can get a much more natural, like lining. They're really good for washes because they have a certain translucency to them. They're all in dark colors. They really are made for like dark lining, but I use them as paint a lot, especially blue liner, because I really love the color it makes when I add white to it. So they are not an ink, not at all like an ink. They have extra flow improver added to them so that their flow properties are enhanced and they are better at doing lining and detail work like that. Often I will use them if I'm doing a very elaborate design in freehand, where I need a thin line, very thin lines. Also very good for eyeballs, at least for outlining. So yeah, let's see here. Oh, Reaperland. Oh. Okay. Christy Van Patten. Woo! Yes, Christy. She's new to streaming, right? So we're gonna give her some extra love, stream love. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for coming out on Monday. We are back to ye old bronze golem. We'll probably continue trying to get some of this, the glowy parts kind of etched in, since we didn't quite get to the point of adding the colors last time, so that we can continue our odyssey of the bronze golem. Yeah, no problem. Thanks, everybody, and have a great weekend. Bye-bye.